position with the Community Action Partnership of North Central Missouri. I serve as the Offender Empowerment Case Manager. I'm not a probation officer. They don't give me a gun to carry around when I go see these folks. I'm on my own. But basically, that means I work with people that have not always made good choices in their lives. And for that reason, they're now involved in the legal system. I'll caution you guys throughout this talk, think that what you do today can and often does affect your future for years to come. Many of the people I work with have spent time incarcerated in the Department of locked up, big word, locked up in the Department of Corrections. Some have spent time in county jails. Some come with histories of alcohol or substance abuse. And some only have been arrested or charged, arrested, and they're now on probation, generally for 5 years or longer. The only common thread that all these folks I work with have is they make poor choices. Let me give you a few examples. One guy borrowed his friend's car. How many of you guys have friends that borrow your car? Anybody? Nobody? Bad example. Anyway, the guy borrowed his friend's car, something he'd done repeatedly in the past. But this night when he borrowed the car, his friend was sleeping. He just decided he was going to run to the store, run down the road to get something to eat. But this time he took the car, like I said, while his friend was sleeping. He wrecked the car, and then he was charged with driving under the influence of alcohol. So now he's charged with tampering with a motor vehicle, destruction of property due to his wreck and the damage to the car, and also DUI. Now he faces restitution. Will, what's restitution? And you're easy to spot because you got it right on the middle of your forehead. What's restitution? Somebody help Will out? Go ahead.
A fine.
It's a fine. Anybody else? Generally, it's a pretty big fine or a really big fine. Restitution is making good the damage that you caused. You tear somebody's stuff up, you gotta pay for it. But along with that comes fines and other court costs and all this stuff. So now this guy faces restitution, court fines, probation, and he also has an alcohol treatment program that he's required by the law to go to. And he has to pay for it. Again, he told me he was just going down the street a few blocks to McDonald's. He wanted to get something to eat. He said in hindsight that he'd been better off if he just went to bed. And you're going to hear this word a lot throughout this. Think. Now I know most places you guys go and you're told to put your phones away. Can somebody Google think? Tell me what the definition of it is. See, when you want to get, you're told to get your phones out, you're slow.
Look up things.
Come on, see, you got this.
I told my wife I was going to use her West Virginia accent. You almost nailed it there. Hold on, we got a definition.
To form or have in mind.
To say it again.
To form or have in mind.
To form or have in mind. What's that mean in normal terms, normal words? Having an ing doesn't help the definition any. I think it, to me, is just processing what's there and choosing to make the best decision. But you're going to hear me say think a lot through this. It just reinforces the idea in me that not everything works out like we planned. Think about it. How many of you always have everything go the way you want it to? You are a lucky man. Another situation, a young woman, and she's not much older than you guys, I work with, she had a couple of pills that a friend had given her because she was complaining of her back and neck hurting. She had no prescription and was caught with those pain pills. She should have took them. I'm not saying that she should have did anything. She didn't have a prescription, but she shouldn't have left and took them with her. She was charged with possession. Now she has a record. She has drug court to attend every week and other hoops and obstacles on her road to success. Her road just became a little harder to navigate. Here's another example many of you won't think of. And this one hits home for me. And I'll go into that real quick. When I was not much older than you guys, I was 18. Doing what most 18-year-old guys do with my 16-year-old girlfriend. She got pregnant. So, much to my family's dismay, I married her. And to make things even better for my family, I enlisted in the Navy. Not a bad choice from my perspective, but my dad, you have to understand, was career Air Force. He had spent almost 30 years in the Air Force, and when I come home told him I had enlisted in the Navy, he looked at me and said, "What were you thinking, son?" I said, "Well, Dad, I think it's easier to swim without a ship than it is to fly without an airplane." And I said, every time I went in there, Navy recruiter was there, very energetic, very enthusiastic. And I said, "Dad, they got better looking uniforms than the Air Force anyway." When I went in, we all wore we called the bell-bottom blues. You had 13 buttons along the front. You had the fancy neckerchief and that little stupid looking Dixie cup hat. But it was still a pretty cool looking uniform. But against my parents' wishes, I was of legal age. They couldn't tell me what to do. I married this girl. And we moved 2,000 miles from home to an island in the Atlantic called Bermuda. I spent the next 4 years there. Unfortunately, I spent 3 of that 4 years divorced. I ended up with custody of my little girl, went back to Bermuda, and spent the next 3 years as a single parent. Now think about it. 19 years old, divorced already, and a little girl to take care of. Someone that has to be taken care of because she's not old enough to take care of herself. It made me grow up fast. Let me get back to my story, or my talk. Back to this example. This is real. And I've seen this numerous times in the last 3 years since I started this position. You're seeing someone, maybe it's your soulmate, or that special person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And nature does what nature does, and you get her pregnant. Then a few months later, you find out she's not my soulmate. I don't even like her anymore. But now you've brought somebody else into this world, and you're responsible. So you try to pay your child support. It doesn't work out. You're young, you don't have experience, so you let the child support go, trying to make your own way. Your child support builds up. You're then arrested and charged with non-payment, non-support of your child. You go to jail for that. I can't count the people I've talked to in the last 3 years that situation has came up. But to even make it better, like adding icing on top of the cake, while they're locked up in prison, not paying their child support, the state takes their driving privileges away. Because in Missouri, as in most states, driving is just that. It is a privilege. It's not a right. So the state says you're not going to pay your child support, you're not driving your car. So now, when they get out of jail, turn too many pages. To get out of jail, it's even harder to find a good job. You now have a record. You can't drive out of town for work because, or if you do it, you'll do it illegally, then you'll get stopped and ticketed for that. And there's people that go to jail for habitually driving without a driver's license. So, and you now have a probation officer that you must meet with as often as they see fit. Sometimes it's weekly, sometimes it's every 2 weeks, just depending on how much they think they need to see you. Think. Oh, and by the way, all this time, while you're locked up, trying to get caught up, whatever, your child support is still accumulating. So not only are you behind, you're now farther behind. One guy I'm working with in this area was behind on his child support, and he's trying to pay it. He's working 80 hours a week, basically 2 full-time jobs. He gets extra hours at one and not enough at another, but he's working about 80 hours a week. They're taking $400 out of his paycheck, every check. That's his normal child support. But they're also taking another big chunk out of his check for back child support. So he's working his rear end off, literally, and bringing home $100 to $150 a week to live on. Think about it. It's hard to survive. All because of choices. The choices you make that have been made or were done when you were very young, the choices you made when you're young can have fallout. They can affect the type of job that you can get. They can affect or limit where you might live. Because not only, in this day and age, not only do employers check out background, so do landlords, colleges, tech schools, just about anybody uses social media or whatever to check people out. I'll give you an example just last week. My wife and I have Great Danes, and we just sold our last puppies. My wife is overprotective of her puppies. We have people calling from all over the country wanting these pups. First thing she does is what I call stalking. She gets on Facebook and every other little social media place she can, and she looks at their history. What do they post? What kind of family situation do they have? Are they a stable environment? Do they have other pets? I mean, these people go through the 3rd degree before they're even allowed to come look at the puppies the first time. So she's very protective, but everybody checks out things. She told me years later, I've only been married, say 5, 6 years this time. And I say this time it wasn't a choice. I'm married, divorced, married, widowed, married again. So I made a mistake when I was 18, divorced by 19. But the next time it lasted a long time. My wife told me, the one I'm married to now, that before we ever got serious, she stalked me on Facebook. She stalked me every place. I said, you can't stalk people like that. Typed in the name, oh my God. I am so thankful and blessed that there wasn't social media when I was your age. So, I'm sure that when these folks got into trouble, they weren't thinking about how this is going to bite them in the butt for years to come. Often it can and does. It may have been something as simple as a Halloween prank that got out of hand. It may have been dating someone a few years younger than you. And now you're charged as a sex offender. Maybe it was sneaking out with your friends, drinking, or whatever. Think. This is your future now. And once you hit that magical age, you are considered an adult, and you are responsible for your actions. Don't cave to peer pressure. I think about that. I'm so happy that my son left Trenton The kid was a good kid. He's got a smart mouth, weird sense of humor, and I don't know where he gets all that stuff from. But I couldn't wait for him to leave town. I love my son dearly, but I knew if he stayed around town, he would be hanging with some people he probably shouldn't have been. I've already worked with a couple of his classmates. One of them was his best friend through my program because he was in the wrong place at the right time. Going into an abandoned house in the middle of the night. Just something to do, but it's something that got him in hot water. So I'm glad that he's gone. He's stationed in Hawaii on the naval in Pearl Harbor and enjoying life. And it's nice weather there too. Even under the best of situations, life can be and is a challenge. Don't make it worse on yourself. Think, is what I'm thinking about doing worth the consequence that I might receive from this? I realize that many people, young people, don't stop and do that. They don't think. They feel like I did when I was your age. Won't happen to me, or it'll be all right. I can get by this time. Not, how can this affect me for the rest of my life? You're smiling an awful lot. I keep looking. My bridge is unzipped or something. I can get something. I know I'm not that funny. I'm not the most orthodox speaker either. You'll figure that out before long too. Many of you now are at a crossroads. You've lived with your mom and dad in their house. You followed their rules. Hopefully better than my son followed some of my rules. But you're now at a point in your life that it might be time to move out, to become as independent as you can be. Entering the workforce. Make positive choices. Oh goody. You're all out of order now. I think I've already hit that page. Think before you act. I know you've all heard the same sentiment from teachers, parents, and people that genuinely care about you. All the right guidance can be negated by poor choices and decisions by you. As I said earlier, don't be influenced by your peers. Make your own decisions. When I graduated from high school, the expectation was get your diploma, go down the road, get to work, get a job at the factory, raise a family, get married first, raise a family, and live the American dream. Excuse me. I didn't want to work in a factory. I didn't want to stay around Albion, just up the road. It's a small town. Industry was drying up, and the factory that everybody was trying to get me to go to closed down just a few years later, and hundreds of people were out of work, just like people were facing in Trenton with ConAgra possibly going out. Where am I at? What might have been seen as a simple prank years ago may now have far more severe consequences. Let me use myself as an example. Years ago, didn't have social media, and I've already told you how thankful I was about that. Where I could say, post, whatever I wanted for the world to read. And it's probably a real good thing. I thought, like I said earlier, I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. I shudder to think of some of the stupid stuff I would have posted. Many of you won't be able to relate to this, but back in the day, we had a different kind of media. We had a phone if you died. And there's nothing quite like making that phone call, venting to somebody, and then slamming that receiver down. That was the ultimate exclamation point. You guys don't know what you're missing. But the key thing to keep in mind, at that point, the conversation was usually over. Or they might call me back and slam down on me, but that's generally as far as it went. It wasn't posted, reposted, shared, and all this other stuff for the world to comment and see. If I had a problem with somebody, it should have been just my problem with them, not everybody else getting involved. And for the record, I don't tweet, I don't Twitter, and I don't do any of that stuff. I wouldn't text if I didn't have to communicate with my son in Hawaii. Yes, sir.
Do you have Facebook?
Yes.
I was curious if you have Facebook.
I have Facebook. And let me tell you how it came about. My granddaughter. I'm not only a parent, I'm a grandpa, and I'm a great-grandpa. My granddaughter several years back said, "Grandpa, did you see our pictures on Facebook?" I said, "Nope." I don't have a Facebook account, and they're identical twins, so I'm not sure which one's second at this point. She said, "Grandpa, you do too have a Facebook page." I said, "No, I don't." She said, "I've never been on Facebook." She said, "We made you a Facebook page 2 years ago." I said, "Really? How did you do that not knowing my password?" She said, "Grandpa, you've been using the same password since we were little bitty." So, I got on Facebook, logged in, there I am. Wow, there's years of pictures and stuff that the kids have been doing. From that respect, I think there's a place for social media. I think that social media is a positive way, can be a positive way, for friends and family to stay connected, especially in a society that is so vastly mobile and dispersed. Years ago, most people graduated, they stayed in the town that they were raised in, and everybody lived in a small little community. Nowadays, kids are scattered all over the world. I think it's a way to stay connected, but unfortunately, many of the things, and you guys have already covered some of this today, so like I said, I'm not going to say it any better than they do, and I don't have my fancy slide presentation. But unfortunately, many of the things that are posted on social media are hurtful, abusive, and often it's apparent that any little, if any, thought was given to the consequences of those posts. Today, social media isn't only looked at by your friends and family, but also by prospective employers, landlords, colleges, etc. As I've already said, I got to stop for a second. Why did you want to know if I have a Facebook page? Do you want to be friends?
You were saying you didn't have Messenger or any of that, so I was curious if you had Facebook. This Facebook's the same, you can text and people can post rude things about you on that too, like all these other websites and stuff to text on. I'm just curious.
I've had it for several years longer than I actually knew. But to this day, I've never posted anything negative about any of my friends or my family. Now I'll have to plead guilty. I didn't do Hillary a very nice job when she was running. That's my opinion. And that's one of the things that living in this free country, you can speak your opinion. And it was just that. It wasn't my opinion. It was my opinion, not anybody else's. Make positive choices is what I'm getting to about your post. Because ultimately, the world has access to it. Because once it's out there, you can't take it back. Think. And with that little comment, I heard this morning that one of your workers has some things posted on YouTube. I can't wait to get to the car this afternoon and look them up. And And then I'm gonna share them and post them.
For the record, I was on the news. That's what he's talking about. Yes, Dad. Okay, good.
Earlier today, you all attended a session on first impressions. How you dress for a job or job interview. Your personal hygiene practices. Where's he at? There he is. It is important to use good hygiene when you go to work. Even though that wasn't one of the choices, it is a good answer. And conduct yourself and your conduct during the interview all play a crucial role in whether you get the job or not. But not only is how you present yourself personally important, but it's also important to realize that what you post on social media may create an image of you that is incorrect. And is that what you really want people to think of you? Again, think. Like I said, if I had posted some of the stuff, I've got a reputation. People know me, think I'm a hard case, a meanie or whatever. My wife gets the greatest chuckles at night sitting there watching me tear up on stupid commercials or some of her shows that she likes to watch. Can't help it. I'm a sensitive guy. You all also attended a session on keeping that job. Think. If you're that employer, would you keep you around if you're constantly late?
No.
If you're calling in?
No.
Or you've got a myriad of excuses that you're unable to come to work today?
No.
Probably not. They're not going to keep you around if you come in and play on your phone all day. Play on the computer all day. They hire you to provide a service or to do a job. Do it. Give it 100%. Don't sell yourself short. There's a lot of competitions for jobs out there today, especially the good ones. If you get a job, give it your all. Most of the people I work with would more than likely give anything if they could go back and make better choices. See, I don't need that. I got a big mouth. They are often severely limited in the choices of types of jobs, often having to work for minimum wage, and they're faced with a life full of challenges and struggles, often due to a case of what I like to call stinking thinking. Unfortunately, these folks have found out the hard way that a poor choice can and does affect them for years to come. Even after they've done their time, they've worked their way off of probation or state supervision. Their future still has a dark cloud over it. They are a felon. Most job applications have you ever been convicted of. Now they're taking it off in some states, but still, employers are going to do